Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today I am so excited to be talking about Bridgerton, Season 1, Episode 3, Art of the Swoon. Oh my gosh, every episode, I think I can't love the Duke more. I do. Okay, technically I hated him this episode, but he's so cute and so fun to look at. I love him. Um, let's get into the episode. Let's talk about all the stuff that went down. So we start out and we see Daphne and the Duke dancing under these beautiful lights, the most pristine setting. Of course, it's a dream. They start out dancing with other people around, but then they disappear and it's just the Duke and Daphne gazing at each other. They're finally about to kiss. She wakes up. That setting, that scenery. I think the costumers, the people that do the scenery, the stage, all that, they deserve all the awards because they do such a good job. P.S. Every time I look at Daphne, all I can think of is Wendy from Peter Pan. I don't know why. That's just what I think about. I think they had the same haircut. Oh, Duke. Okay, so she wakes up, right? And then we see the Bridgerton opening start. I even love the opening. Okay, so we got Whistledown doing her voiceover. Daphne has rejected 3 proposals this week, so it's working. Her plan with the Duke is working. All the guys are noticing her. The ladies are leaving him alone. Exactly what they wanted. Whistledown is saying she's waiting on one suitor of note, so waiting for the Duke to propose. The Duke and Daphne go to lunch, and she says they must continue the ruse, and he seems to be having so much fun with it, he totally agrees. They have so much sexual tension. That's what I wrote in my notes. So much tension. Then we go over the Featherington house. We find out a prince is coming into town. We'll discover it's Prince Frederick from Prussia, but Prince is coming, so this is big news. Penelope is wandering around looking through the mail, and we find out what's happening as she goes to report to Marina to see if there's any. Marina's waiting for a letter from the man she loves, and he's in Spain, and she's hoping. She had written him some letters, and she's hoping for a letter back. Penelope says surely he'll write back soon. So Baroness Portia walks in, who's Penelope's mom and the worst. And she's pissed. She doesn't want Penelope visiting with Marina. And Marina tells Baroness that she cannot hide her in there forever. And Baroness agrees, says, no, we can't, which is why you'll be re-entering society. And she says, we'll do this at once, and you will find a husband. You will wed as quickly as possible. So the plan, for the mom at least, is get her wed. They do what they do on their wedding night. Oh, look, a baby comes. Okay. Daphne is talking to her family about her suitors and her options. She said the Duke has not proposed. Mom says you must marry the man who feels like your dearest friend. So we go to the ball, and I just love these scenes, especially at the balls. I love to see Daphne and the Duke interacting. They have such chemistry on screen. It's fun to watch. An interesting side note, I was listening to the violins play, and I kept thinking, that sounds so familiar. They were playing Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. I just love noticing details like that. It was pretty funny. So Duke, of course, is doing his duty. He's escorting Daphne around the ball. Lord Weaver is asking her to dance. The Duke pretends to be jealous. Daphne dances with Lord Weaver. She's asking him basic questions like city versus country. He can't answer them. So she's not impressed. There's a montage of Daphne dancing with all these different men. They're all duds. Fun to look at, but they're duds. They can't answer her basic questions. She's not at all intrigued. The whole time she's kind of glancing over at the Duke because, hello. She keeps catching eyes with him. Lady Bridgerton and Lady Danbury are talking, and they're trying to figure out when the Duke might pop the question to Daphne. Okay, so here's Prince Frederick. He's from Prussia. Daphne talks crap about all the ladies who are trying to court the, I guess that's the right way to say that, Prince Frederick. I guess the men do the courting, but so here's Cressida. this becomes a big point throughout the episode. Here's Cressida. She's flirting with the prince. Now, I love Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte is like, no. Let me introduce you to the diamond of the season. And so she introduces the prince to to Daphne Bridgerton. And he seems immediately charmed, but she only has eyes for the Duke. The prince is basically saying all the same thing to all the same women. So when he says it to Daphne, she cracks up. She shares a private joke with the Duke about it. And yeah, it's just kind of a funny scene. Okay, so then we go over to Dress Shop Lady. I finally figured out her name is Genevieve. And she hears a noise, and it's that opera singer, Sienna. And it turns out they're friends. So they talk about making their own way in the world. They dream about the kind of men they want to find and marrying. The opera singer, Sierra, says she wants to marry rich, so she can be kept in gowns and kept up with a certain lifestyle. And remember that she and Anthony were together and seemingly pretty serious, but he had to let her go because that's not what's done as head of the household. Speak of the devil, we go over to Anthony and the Duke, and it's like a men's club. They're gambling, and Anthony wants to know the Duke's intentions with Daphne. And he says that they are nothing but respectful. So after talking, the women start to enter the club, and Sienna makes conversation with different people in the room. Anthony is certainly taking notice. She finally makes her way over to the Duke, and she asks him to take in one of her performances soon and says perhaps tomorrow night. So it sounds like they're making a date. So then we go over to Daphne. We see that she's tossing and turning and unable to sleep. She gets up and walks down the hallway and ends up running into Anthony. So they decide they're going to just go for some warm milk. They go into the kitchen and they can't figure out how to work the stove. It was a very Downton Abbey moment. They just say, okay, never mind, let's just have cold milk. So she asks Anthony why the Duke is so opposed to marriage, and he says the things that he knows are not for her ears. Well, she ends up talking him around, and Anthony explains that he barely knew his father. Of course, the Duke barely knew his father and didn't know his mother because she passed in childbirth, no siblings. Spent his entire life alone, and he prefers it that way, and says you must not concern yourself with his troubles. Okay, so then we go over to Marina. She's getting fitted for new clothes. It's Genevieve, the dress shop owner, who is helping her get fitted. Things are getting tighter, and what the Baroness says it's because she loves cake. So the Bridgertons go to a new exhibit. It's something that Whistledown had talked about. It's this new paintings exhibit that is open. It's the place to be, so everybody was there. Baroness Portia is dragging around poor Marina, making her meet men. She's not into it. She catches the eye of Penelope. Baroness gets super pissed with Portia for interrupting the match, but she saved Marina from making a huge mistake and trying to match up with this man she has no interest in. So Prince Frederick goes to find Daphne, and he says that the art is not the only beautiful thing on display. And he's trying to flirt with her and talk to her, but she is so distracted by the Duke. He starts to catch on, and he realizes, her heart is with the Duke. So she goes to find the Duke, and he's alone staring at the paintings. So the Duke and Daphne, even when their backs were to each other, there was just so much tension between them. He says they talk about that they're proud of themselves for fooling Lady Whistledown. They admire a painting that was a favorite of his mother's. She says it's very beautiful. It's like waking up in the country. It's serene, and she says she feels very comforted by the piece. And this just intrigues him, the Duke, more. She seems to be the only one that is like understanding why that piece meant so much to him, because it was his mother's, and that's probably what his mother felt as well. So as they're talking and they take deep breaths, their hands just like reach out toward each other. Even that was such a good scene. It was such a charged scene. They're reaching their hands toward each other and like just making contact, and it was in private, so it was for nobody else but them. And oh man. And then it's interrupted by a very loud crash. I was so mad. So they run in to see what the noise was, and it's Cressida. She has swooned. She's the one that's going after the prince. She has apparently swooned from it all. And her mother, Lady Cowper, is there with them, and she's swooned over the prince. So the prince is kind of eating it up, and Daphne and the Duke are kind of laughing about it. So then we see the Duke goes to get his carriage and says, when he goes to the carriage, the driver or whatever says they need to hurry if they're going to be going to the opera. Remember that Sienna asked him to go to the opera that night, and he says, nope, I will not be going. I will be going straight home. So he's definitely into Daphne. We already knew this. Okay, so next day in the park, we see Prince Frederick and Cressida, and they're walking arm in arm, so it seems to be getting more serious. Now, of course, Bridgerton arrives, and the prince, they made a point of him noticing her. We see him having lunch with Queen Charlotte, and Queen Charlotte tells the prince that Daphne is the most coveted girl and the best on the English shores. Prince Frederick says her heart is already spoken for, and the Queen says, her heart is no matter. You are a prince. Charm her. Okay, so then Daphne, throughout the episode, is working on this piece she's been writing on the piano. Eloise asks her to stop. They argue. Daphne tells Eloise, you're not the only one with troubles. So, ongoing things with Eloise, we see it later. She's struggling with it all. Meanwhile, we see it's Baroness Portia and Marina, and they go to this poor area, and it turns out what's happening is the Baroness is showing Marina what she believes her future will be if she doesn't get married, to try to scare her. It doesn't seem to work, but Marina does get upset. So the Duke and Daphne go for a walk. She tells him that her mom told her she should marry her dearest friend. She says that there are physical or intangible things that bring a couple together. He says it could be both physical and intangible. So they kind of get into it a little bit, and she starts kind of prodding him, asking him about the sex stuff. He says it wouldn't be right for them to talk about it. And she says, well, it's not a real courtship, so spill. And she bugs him into telling her, and he tells her what happens between a husband and a wife. And you guys, even when they talk about that, it's like, oh man, you just want them to get together so bad. So she really doesn't understand what he's talking about, and he's like, like that stuff that you do alone when you're not sleeping. And he tells her basically what goes down, and she is just like speechless. And he says it reaches a pinnacle, still speechless. Whew, he's so hot in these scenes. I'm dying. After that very charged scene, we see Lady Danbury asking the Duke if the time spent with Miss Bridgerton is leading anywhere. She's telling him the prolonged courtship is one thing, but Daphne has caught the eye of Prince Frederick, and if she loses the chances of such an extraordinary match because of him, I won't forgive your carelessness. So this seems to sink in, and unfortunately leads to a really tough scene later. Okay, so Eloise is outside. She's sneaking cigarettes again. Colin, the more fun brother than Anthony, the nicer brother, finds her, and they share a cigarette. Eloise says Whistledown is a woman, therefore she has nothing, but she still is able to write, and tells him, you're a man. You have everything. Be bold. Do what you want to do, and let me live vicariously through you. and he asks her if she is Whistledown because she loves to write. She's very smart, and he believes it could be her. And she laughs and says no. And she said, if it were, do you think I would admit it? And you know what? That'd be such a fun twist. I wish she would. I wish she would be Whistledown. All right, bedtime. Daphne closes the door. Things get exciting. There you go. Okay, so the next day, she's miraculously able to finish her piano piece. She's all smiles. Life is good. Thank you, Duke. So then she walks up to the Duke. She says she was thinking today they should try something different. She's just so excited to see him. He's completely distracted. You guys, this was the toughest scene to watch. He says, I shall not be joining you, Miss Bridgerton. He's very formal with her, calling her Mrs. Bridgerton. She asks him not to do that. And she asks if I've done something wrong. And he says about our conversation yesterday. Oh, she wants to know if it's about their conversation yesterday. And he says he's corrupting her. She said, I thought you and I were friends. And he says, we were never friends. I cannot think of a more ridiculous notion of you and I being friends. Oh my gosh. He says she was a diversion. It broke my heart. Obviously, we know what he's doing. He has to make a hard line in the sand, a clean break, so that way she will move on because he knows he cannot marry her. But, it's just so heartbreaking. I want to tell him, like, screw your dad, do what'll make you happy. And if you won't, you obviously like her, marry her. What are we doing? So it works. Daphne is heartbroken. She runs into her room, crying and very upset. We see Sienna performing. The crowd isn't really paying attention to her. They're kind of talking to each other. So she starts to sing louder and more emotion, and she garners all their attention. They watch, they applaud. It's a big showstopper. So then backstage, she's told a gentleman is there for her, and it's Anthony Bridgerton, which was so good because I was so scared it was the Duke, and he was there to be with her, and that was going to break my heart because he belonged with Daphne. But it's Anthony, and she says she has plans. Anthony's completely jealous. He says he's not, but he is. Finally, though, he says he misses her and asks her to come back. She says his position in life remains unchanged, and neither does hers. And turns out he's made her these promises before, and she says, like a fool, I believe them. I cannot be your fool again. Very curious to see how that ends up going. I didn't like Anthony the first couple seasons, especially when he was like arranging Daphne's marriage, but maybe he just really loves this Sienna girl and is afraid to be with her or unable to be with her. Who knows? Okay, so Penelope back at the window, and she sees that the post has come. She finds one from Spain for Marina. She runs it up to her. So Sir George has written her back. She doesn't say what it says, and we see Marina as she's reading it. She starts to change her face. She ends up balling up the letter. Oh my gosh, this was so heartbreaking. So many heartbreaking scenes this episode, and this is one of them. And Penelope's like, what did he say? And she says he pretends there's nothing between us. Says he desires nothing more to do with me or my situation, and that he had no part in it. Marina is absolutely devastated. She's howling with grief. She's so upset. She's just crying, understandably. Okay. So that Baroness Awful, Portia, hears it and says, oh my gosh, it would appear our efforts were not in vain. So it turns out she had her maid write the letter. They stole some of her other letters and were able to exactly copy his handwriting. And Baroness says that we have done what is right and what is best. The housekeeper is not sure. That is so horrible. I hope to God this guy comes back and kicks the crap out of the Baroness, because that is awful. Okay, so Daphne is at Genevieve's dress shop. The Lady Cowper is there with her daughter Cressida, and Lady Cowper comes to talk to Lady Bridgerton and says it's a good thing Daphne is taken with the Duke. Of course, Daphne kind of gets teary-eyed, doesn't answer, and she ends up saying her daughter Cressida wouldn't have a chance with the prince if not. She says, my daughter has the fortune, your daughter has the face. Could you imagine? Her daughter's right there to hear that. They have a ball that night. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Anthony is looking at his dad's watch, and his mom comes in and hands him a list of 14 names that are a good match for him, and kind of talks about him staring at the father's old pocket watch. No other information given there. Curious to see if that'll come up soon. Like maybe he'll give that to Sienna. Who knows? Okay, so they're at the ball, and the prince is dancing with Cressida. And the queen is bored. I love her facial expressions in this. Cressida's mom is very happy to watch this match and watch them dance and get closer, or so she thinks. But then Daphne arrives. And, before that, sorry. Marina is immediately asked to dance, and she says yes. Lady Danbury says to the Duke, you've been rather reserved all evening. And he says he's decided to leave England earlier than expected, and it's time for him to go. And Lady Danbury tells him he's foolish. I love her. I love Lady Danbury. So then Daphne arrives, and she makes her grand entrance. She's wearing this beautiful white sparkle dress. She's had her hair all specially done up, and she's gorgeous. So when she walks out, she's trying to be bold and confident and show that she's moved on from this Duke who's made this huge mistake. And when she walks out to the ledge, Cressida, of course, is staring daggers at her. The prince is completely noticing her. He's captivated. Even the queen is staring at her. But then we see the Duke is staring too. Oh. So the prince excuses himself from Cressida, which disappoints her and her mother, obviously. The queen is smiling in the background, which was hilarious. And the prince finds Miss Bridgerton and says, Miss Bridgerton, I simply must have your first dance. And she says, it would be an honor. Then she expertly drops her fan, and the prince bows to pick it up. So it was a whole spectacle. Everybody was noticing. Big deal. Okay, so then Whistledown comes on and says, this season's diamond is set to join the crown jewels. Miss Bridgerton seems to finally have grown tired of waiting for the Duke to pose the question. And then we see the queen looking happy. The Duke ends up leaving. He just can't watch this. And we're left with Whistledown saying, why settle for a Duke when one can have a prince? Because she loves the Duke. What are we doing? This was so hard to watch. I know it'll work out. At least I hope it will. But, oh my gosh, I just want them to be together so bad. So, oh man. So that is it for the episode. So much good stuff going on. So well written. I'm really enjoying this. I plan to keep going with it. Just be patient with me. These are a lot to recap with all my other stuff. And there's a lot of characters in this. I actually had to write down everybody's name so I'd remember, because no joke, there's like 15 characters to keep track of for this one. But I'm loving it. It's so much fun to talk about. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all the wonderful comments on this. I really hope you're enjoying it. And just thank you for everything. Thank you for all this continued support. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy it, and I will talk to you guys soon. Stay healthy and take care.